Today's video is sponsored by Ridge Wallet. Now, Ridge Wallet sent me two cool things, the wallet itself and the key case. This is my previous wallet. This is the Ridge Wallet. Look at the difference in size. I'm actually really impressed at how easy it is to get your cards out. You just push up at the bottom here and you can go through all of your cards very easily. Here's the Ridge Wallet card right here. It feels really sturdy and also just looks really cool. I got the Damascus pattern. The key case I'm actually really impressed with as well. This can hold up to 6 keys. Just push your keys like this, grab whichever key you want, and you can use them. Get the best off link with ridge.com/TGG. And right now you can save up to 40% off up until December 22nd. Again, that's ridge.com/TGG. And thank you to Ridge Wallet for sponsoring today's video. Grand Theft Auto Online has been out for almost 10 years now. And over that time, it's no surprise that certain things have gone in and out of the meta. So today I'm going to go over 10 of the things in GTA Online that used to be good, but over the years have kind of just become a bit useless. We're going to talk about some vehicles, some missions, some money-making methods, and more. So if you enjoy this video, a thumbs up would be awesome. Subscribe for more stuff like this, and let's go. First up at number 10, and this one hurts a bit, it's the Stromberg. This was the first submarine car introduced to GTA Online, and it was really good for a bunch of years. The fact that it could go underwater was pretty cool, but that wasn't even the main selling point of this car. It was just a really good counter to something like the Oppressor Mark II. Not only that, but it could tank a few rockets, you know, it had a little bit of health. It had really good homing missiles, which is actually what made it so effective in free roam, but nowadays, you'll barely see anyone using it. And why is that? Well, that's because Rockstar introduced the Turreted in the Cayo Perico heist. What is the Turreted, you ask? Well, it's basically a Stromberg that's better in essentially every single way. It can go underwater, it can shoot rockets that track just as well as the Stromberg, it can tank some rockets as well, just like the Stromberg, actually a couple more. You can store it in your Kasatka submarine, which makes it really convenient. And the main selling point, well, it has a rocket boost that you can use every couple of seconds. Now, does this make the Stromberg bad? I mean, no. Technically, the Stromberg is just as good as it ever was, but there is essentially no reason to use it now because you can get the same vehicle that's just better, which means this thing has gone completely out of the meta and you'll barely see anyone using it. And honestly, that's a bit of a shame. Next up, we have the Oppressor. And no, not the little flying hoverbike that you're thinking about, the Oppressor Mark I. Yeah, that's right. Before the Oppressor Mark II, there was another Oppressor, literally just called the Oppressor. Now, for anyone who's just started playing GTA Online in the past couple of years, I wouldn't be surprised if you've never seen anyone using the original Oppressor. And just like the Stromberg, it's not because it's bad. I mean, it's a really fun vehicle, and it's still pretty good, but it's because Rockstar introduced the Oppressor Mark II that absolutely anyone, regardless of how good you are at video games, can use effectively because, well, it's a pretty brain-dead vehicle. The Oppressor Mark I actually took a little bit of skill to fly, because it's not just a hover bike. It has a boost that you can use to hover, but you're actually going to need to touch the ground or at least a solid surface in order to get yourself another boost and stay in the air. It's so disappointing because this is actually a really fun vehicle and really satisfying to use once you actually get used to it. But Rockstar made this pretty much completely irrelevant by dumbing it down and making absolutely everyone be able to use the Oppressor Mark II, like I said, regardless of how good you are. Such a shame. Next up is the Doomsday Heists. Now, I know there's going to be some people in the comments saying these are a really good way to make money still, but let's be honest, if we're not doing glitches, which I don't do on this channel, then these heists are pretty bad and need an update. There is basically no reason to actually do these heists now that we have both the Diamond Casino heist and the Cayo Perico heist in the game. Now, to Rockstar's credit, you can actually do these heists with 2 people instead of having to have 4 people like the original heist, which we'll talk about soon. But the introduction of, like I said, the Casino and Cayo Perico heists have really given these heists a massive nerf. They take an extremely long time to do, and they don't pay as much as the other heists. So that's why these ones have ended up on this list. At number 8, we have the original heists in GTA Online, the ones that were introduced way back in 2015. That's a long time ago. Nowadays, I see pretty much no one trying to run these heists because the effort to reward ratio is honestly one of the worst in the entire game. The Fleecer job is a pretty simple heist, but the other 4 heists, the Humane Labs Raid, Series A Funding, Pacific Standard, and Prison Break, all require you to have 4 players, and if anyone leaves, you have to start that mission again. On top of that, these take the longest to complete out of any heist in the game, maybe other than the Doomsday Heists, they can be pretty long, but these are also by far the lowest paying heists in the game. So basically, you're gonna have to spend a lot of time trusting 3 other people and then splitting the final cut with those 3 other people as well. It absolutely pales in comparison to the Cayo Perico heist, the Diamond Casino heist, and honestly, even the Doomsday heists pay a lot better than these ones. The Cayo Perico heist can be done solo, and the Doomsday heists and Casino heists can be done with anywhere between 2 and 4 players, instead of the 4 players that you need for the original heists. Now, to Rockstar's credit, they did actually buff the payouts a bit for the original heists earlier this year in 2022, but they're still by far the worst paying heists in the game, and they desperately need a lot more love if they're gonna be relevant in 2022 or 2023. Rockstar, if you're listening, we need you to buff the payouts of these ones again and somehow make them able to be completed with 2 players. Because having to rely on 4 people to complete this perfectly without leaving or dying, well, that's pretty much an impossible task. At number 6, I've got the Rocket Voltic. Now, this is one of the most forgotten about vehicles in all of the game. The Rocket Voltic was introduced into the game when it was, let's just say, a much more simple time. We didn't have all of these flying cars, we didn't have orbital cannons, we didn't have heavily armored attack helicopters, flying bikes, you know the deal. Initially, the Rocket Voltic was introduced to be a cool car that you can do some cool stunts in with some friends. But nowadays, you're gonna see basically no one using it. Why? Well, because Rockstar, just like the Oppressor Mark I and the Stromberg, introduced a bunch of vehicles that just do everything better than the Rocket Voltic. Nowadays, we have other rocket-boosted vehicles like the Oppressor Mark I, the Oppressor Mark II, but more specifically, if we're looking at actual 4-wheel vehicles, you've got the Scramjet, the Vigilante, the Deluxo that can literally fly, and of course, like I mentioned earlier in the video, the Toreador. Basically, all of those vehicles are better for completing stunts and actually being a viable option to use in free mode than the Rocket Voltic, which is pretty disappointing because the Rocket Voltic is a pretty cool concept. Next up, very similarly to the Rocket Voltic, I'm going to put the Ruiner 2000. Now, this is actually one of the most expensive vehicles in the game, which is kind of crazy. This thing can cost you up to $5.745 million. That's wild. And basically, all this car can do is shoot rockets, which, you know, that's actually pretty cool. Like, that's a useful thing. It can do a little jump in the air, and it can pull a parachute. Now, just like the Rocket Voltic, this was introduced with the Import-Export DLC when the game was a lot simpler and didn't have all these crazy flying vehicles. And unfortunately, the Ruiner 2000 just has a lot of things that don't make it very useful. First of all, it doesn't have any boosting, like speed boosting capabilities. It doesn't have a rocket on the back of it. Being able to parachute is cool, but not really useful in any given situation. It actually does have very good tracking rockets, some of the best rockets in the game, but the problem is, you only get 8 of them. That's right, you get 8 rockets, and after that, your vehicle is pretty much completely useless. Now, if we're talking about the fully loaded Ruiner 2000, which is a completely different story, which you can only access through VIP work, then yeah, this is one of the best vehicles in the game. But if we're talking about the stock Ruiner 2000, unfortunately, this thing has been completely overshadowed. At number 4, and this one really hurts, this is a sad one to put on this list, it's the Rhino Tank. Anyone who played GTA Online back in 2013 or 2014, this tank likely holds a special place in your heart. This was the original Griefer's best friend. That's right, people used to roam the streets of Los Santos with the Rhino Tank way back in the day, blowing absolutely everyone up, maybe even hanging a Rhino Tank off of a cargo bob and, you know, fly it around the city, try to blow as many people up as possible. It was really fun back in the day, but unfortunately nowadays, the Rhino Tank just isn't that good. Rockstar has introduced a lot of other armored vehicles that outclass the Rhino in a lot of ways, but the main competitor to the Rhino Tank is the Khanjali, and the Khanjali essentially outclasses the Rhino in every single way. So anytime you see a tank on the streets of Los Santos nowadays, it is most likely a Khanjali, which again is pretty sad. Let's go away from armored vehicles for a little bit. Let's go into vehicles that are meant to be fast. We're talking sports cars, supercars, and basically any vehicle that you can race. There are way too many vehicles to actually call out by name here, so I'm actually just gonna say basically every vehicle that was released over 3 years ago is most likely now out of the racing meta. Now, of course, you're gonna have some exceptions to this rule. But as you go into Legendary Motorsports, the further and further down the list of vehicles you get, you're going to see hundreds of vehicles that are now just not as good as they used to be. This is to be expected though. Rockstar is not going to release new vehicles that are like slower than the older ones because no one would buy them then. So this does make sense, but it's really just sad to scroll through this list and see all of the vehicles that used to be good, but no one really uses anymore. Next up, I had to put this one in just because of like how outdated this one is. This is so crazily outdated now that it's not even funny. And that is the Turreted Limo. I cannot remember the last time I saw one of these in free mode. Back in the day when this first came out, the Turreted Limo was actually a beast. It was really good and a lot of people used to use it. But slowly over the years, just like basically everything else on this list, Rockstar introduced vehicles that were a little bit better and a little bit better, and it just sort of slid out of the meta. It really started when the Insurgent Pickup came into the game, and then the Insurgent Pickup Custom with the gun running DLC. And then essentially all of the armored vehicles that have been released ever since that have, you know, rockets as opposed to just a minigun, sort of made the Turreted Limo, well, obsolete. And this one's a shame, more so than a lot of the other vehicles on this list, because the best part of the Turreted Limo is you can be the driver and then you can get a friend that's your gunner. It takes a bit of teamwork, but it's a lot more fun than a lot of other vehicles when you're working as a little group to take out other players in the lobby. Nowadays, most vehicles that are good are designed for solo players that can just, you know, grief whoever they want by themselves, which isn't really as fun, so this one is, you know, it's a pretty big shame. At number 1, the most outdated, obsolete, and basically useless thing in GTA Online nowadays is contact missions. Back when the game first came out, contact missions were the best way to make money in all of GTA Online. I still remember saving up for the adder way back in 2013 just by grinding contact missions. Nowadays, you're barely gonna see anyone actually grinding contact missions. Literally this year in 2022, Rockstar introduced a handful of new contact missions, the Agent ULP missions, and I would assume 90% of the player base played these missions once and then never touched them again because they are absolutely horrible for making money. And this is a huge shame. That's right, like Grand Theft Auto Online is one of the only online games where actually playing missions is a terrible method of succeeding in the game. It's kind of crazy, right? Like actually playing missions is a terrible way to make money. You are better off doing something like heists, running businesses, basically anything else other than doing contact missions. And that sucks because these are actually really fun, especially if you get 3 other friends to do these missions with. Some of my best memories in Grand Theft Auto Online come from contact missions, grinding these missions out with friends back when they were pretty good. Whether it was the Simeon blow-up missions, Rooftop Rumble, a titan of a job, way back in 2013 and 2014, these were absolutely amazing, and you could always find people to do these with. Nowadays, it's the complete opposite, and that's a shame. So we'll wrap the video up there. These are the 10 things that come to my mind when I look at outdated and pretty much useless features in GTA Online in 2022 and 2023. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What did I not include on this list? Or is there something that shouldn't be on this list that is? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed, again, a thumbs up would be awesome. Subscribe for more stuff like this. I hope you stay safe, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.
Favorite color, money green. Paper. I've been on my grind since I was in the 7th grade.